December 20th, 1968. A chilling cold night in Benicia, California. High school students Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday parked their car at a lover's lane. A setting as ordinary as any other American town on a winter's night. But this was not an ordinary night. And this was not an ordinary town. Betty and David were typical teenagers, full of dreams and aspirations. That night, they were expecting nothing more than the thrill of a clandestine rendezvous. But what awaited them was something far more sinister. Their innocent rendezvous turned into a deadly encounter, their dreams abruptly ending in a hail of gunfire. The killer vanished into the darkness, leaving behind only the lifeless bodies of Betty and David, a grim tableau of terror that would soon become all too familiar. The San Francisco Bay Area woke up the next day to a reality that was as chilling as it was incomprehensible. A killer was on the loose. The news of the murders spread through the community like wildfire, a chilling reminder of the fragility of life and the presence of evil. Parents held their children a little closer, teenagers looked over their shoulders, and the once peaceful town of Benicia was gripped by a fear that was palpable. In the days that followed, a wave of shock and disbelief washed over the community. The sense of safety was shattered, replaced with a haunting fear that lingered long after the sun had set. The question on everyone's mind was simple yet terrifying. Who could commit such a heinous act? The local police department, though seasoned, found themselves grappling with a case that was as baffling as it was brutal. The faceless terror that had invaded their peaceful town had left no clues, no motives, just a chilling message. No one was safe. In the face of mounting fear and uncertainty, the community rallied together, vowing to bring the killer to justice. But little did they know this was just the beginning. Their deaths marked the beginning of a reign of terror that would haunt the San Francisco Bay Area for years to come. In the months following the first attack, a series of cryptic letters began to appear, signed with a distinctive crossed circle symbol. These letters, intended to both taunt and terrify, would become a key part of the Zodiac Killer's grim legacy. The letters, often sent to newspapers, were a chilling combination of threats, boasts, and indecipherable ciphers. The first three-part cipher, received in July 1969, was a complex puzzle of symbols and characters. It was a brazen challenge to the police and the public, a gauntlet thrown down by a killer who seemed to revel in the fear and confusion he sowed. The letters weren't just a means of communication, but a weapon of psychological warfare. Each new missive ratcheted up the tension, the fear, the sense of a community held hostage by an unseen menace. The Zodiac's letters were an assertion of power and control, a constant reminder of his presence and his ability to strike at will. But it was the crossed circle symbol, the Zodiac's self-chosen emblem, that became the most enduring and terrifying aspect of his correspondence. This simple but potent symbol, often drawn at the bottom of the letters, was a stark and haunting reminder of the killer's identity. It became his calling card, a signature that was as much a part of his persona as the chilling content of his letters. The cross-circle symbol was not just a mark, but a brand, a visual representation of the Zodiac's cold, calculating nature. It was a symbol that encapsulated the fear and uncertainty that he instilled in his victims and the wider public. The letters and the symbol were not just a game to the Zodiac, but a calculated strategy. They were a means of exerting control, of maintaining a presence even when he wasn't physically there. They were a chilling insight into the mind of a killer, a taunting game that served to heighten the fear and uncertainty. Over the next 2 years, the Zodiac Killer struck again and again, leaving a trail of victims and unsolved mysteries in his wake. His second attack happened in July 1969, at Blue Rock Springs Park, Vallejo, California. The victims were Darlene Ferrin and Mike Mageau. Ferrin didn't survive, but Mageau miraculously did, giving the police their first description of the killer. A few months passed before he struck again in September 1969. College students Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were picnicking at Lake Berryessa in Napa County when they were approached by a man wearing a bizarre homemade hood. Shepard succumbed to her injuries, but Hartnell survived and provided another description of the killer. The Zodiac's final confirmed kill was in October 1969, when he shot cab driver Paul Stein in the head at point-blank range in a residential San Francisco neighborhood. The brazen act was a departure from his usual MO, hinting at a killer growing bolder with each passing crime. In addition to these confirmed attacks, the Zodiac claimed responsibility for others, including the murder of Cherry Jo Bates in Riverside, California, in October 1966, and Kathleen Johns, who escaped an attempted abduction in March 1970. However, these cases remain unconfirmed as the work of the Zodiac. Each crime scene was meticulously planned, each victim chosen with deliberate care. The Zodiac's letters, filled with taunts and ciphers, were as chilling as his crimes, adding layers to the enigma that surrounded him. Despite the horror of his crimes, the Zodiac Killer's reign of terror was marked not by the number of victims, but by the fear he instilled. His ability to elude capture, even when leaving a trail of clues, made him an enigma, a phantom lurking in the darkest corners of the public consciousness. Despite intensive investigations and widespread media coverage, the killer managed to evade capture, his identity remaining a mystery. His reign of terror ended as abruptly as it began, leaving behind a chilling legacy that continues to haunt us to this day. The impact of the Zodiac's reign of terror was profound, instilling fear and paranoia throughout the Bay Area. In the late 60s and early 70s, a dark cloud hung over the San Francisco Bay Area. The Zodiac Killer, with his cryptic messages and chilling signature, left an indelible mark on the region. His crimes weren't just acts of violence, they were psychological warfare, sowing seeds of fear and distrust in the hearts of the community. As the body count rose, so did the public's dread. The Zodiac was not just a killer, he was an architect of terror. He attacked young couples in secluded areas, transforming places of intimacy and solitude into crime scenes. This strategic choice of victims and locations fostered a pervasive sense of insecurity. His cryptic letters to the press, filled with taunts and ciphers, further amplified the paranoia. Each letter was a chilling reminder of his presence, his audacity, and his delight in the terror he instilled. The public was not merely reading about the Zodiac, they were engaged in a twisted dialogue with him. This ongoing interaction with the killer created a psychological climate of constant uncertainty and dread. Moreover, the Zodiac's ability to elude law enforcement for decades only heightened the fear. Despite the best efforts of detectives and the FBI, the killer remained a ghost. Always one step ahead, always watching, always ready to strike again. This failure to apprehend the Zodiac not only frustrated law enforcement but also undermined public confidence in their ability to protect the community. And so, the Zodiac's reign of terror had a far-reaching impact. It changed the way people lived, loved, and trusted. It transformed the Bay Area from a place of peace and beauty into a landscape of fear. And it left a legacy of unsolved mysteries and unanswered questions that continue to haunt the region to this day. His brazenness and ability to outwit law enforcement only added to the mystery surrounding his identity. Over the years, numerous suspects have been proposed, but the identity of the Zodiac Killer remains shrouded in uncertainty to this day. Among the most notable suspects was Arthur Lee Allen, a convicted child molester who was at the center of the original investigation. Despite being fingered by multiple tipsters, none of the physical evidence ever tied him conclusively to the crimes. His name was further muddied when a former friend claimed Allen had confessed to wanting to kill people and sign his work with a symbol, eerily similar to the Zodiac's. Then there was Gary Francis Post, a former mental patient whose name surfaced decades after the killings stopped. A group of amateur sleuths pointed out similarities between his appearance and the composite sketches of the Zodiac. But again, no definitive proof was ever found. Over the decades, the list of suspects grew long and varied, including disgruntled Navy men, frustrated schoolteachers, even a real estate mogul. Each time the evidence was either circumstantial or fell apart under scrutiny. Despite the frustration and dead ends, the fascination with the Zodiac Killer has never waned. His crimes inspired countless books, documentaries, and even Hollywood films. Amateur detectives all over the world continue to pore over the case files, hoping to crack the codes left unsolved and unmask the killer. The intrigue lies not just in the unsolved murders, but also in the cryptic letters and ciphers sent by the Zodiac himself. Despite the best efforts of law enforcement and code breakers, several of these puzzles remain unsolved, adding another layer to the enigma. The Zodiac Killer's identity remains elusive, much like the man himself. His chilling persona, the gruesome nature of his crimes, and his knack for evading capture have created a captivating yet horrifying legacy. The case of the Zodiac Killer remains one of the most infamous unsolved mysteries in criminal history, haunting investigators and amateur sleuths alike with its unanswered questions and enigmatic clues.